The answer is yes, emphatically so, and demonstrably too. You are free under capitalism. The number one thing that's going to restrict you is not the natural order. It's not your natural needs. It is government. It's society. Second thought doesn't understand the distinctions between rights, privileges, freedoms, although he may offer a decent explanation of positive and negative freedoms, which I'm going to get into. He doesn't understand where all comes together in relation to the human. Ladies and gentlemen, if there's anything more that I love than a socialist, it's gotta be a socialist shill, engaging in the joys and wonders of capitalism. Yes, by all means, please feed into the ever-growing wallet of Second Thought and his entrepreneurial ventures too, like Nebula. No, capitalism's evil. But in any event, ladies and gentlemen, this is the Wicked Generation, and we are its redeemed. Back with some commentary on whether or not you're really free under capitalism. Yeah, this has to be the greatest gaslight in all of history. Alright, let's begin then.
If you were to ask a handful of Americans what makes their country so special, odds are most of them would respond, our freedom. If you were to press them on the issue and ask why we experience such freedom, their answer would probably be something about the Founding Fathers, our strong military, and capitalism. Now, this video...
You mean our ability to almost do as we want within reason and to benefit ourselves by benefiting others? Seems legit to me.
Video is not about the various global freedom rankings, in which...
You're telling me, hold on a second, United States, in which the leader of the free world is seated, is not really free? I've actually in private ranted about the bogus metrics used to determine being free, and quite frankly they're even less convincing than what Second Thought does here. I know it's hard to believe, but we'll get to that. And as a matter of fact, we're not a pure capitalist nation ourselves. The reason why you're going to see any sort of breach of freedoms is, unironically, government intervention. However, Second Thought seems to flip that on its head for some reason, which we'll get to when he brings up.
That capitalism doesn't enable freedom at all. In fact, it actively suppresses it. This may sound like a strange claim, but bear with me. I think you'll...
I barely bared it the first time. Guys, I don't know if I'll live to a second.
...come around by the end. Before we begin...
I feel like freaking Atlas right now. I'm bearing the weight of not only my own world, one world, but heck, the imaginary one that this guy lives in too. Ugh.
We need to have a deeper understanding of freedom than simply, I get to do what I want. Let's start with the concepts of positive and negative freedom. Positive freedom is having the capacity to act according to one's free will.
Sure, I'll bite. Sure, we'll go along these definitions.
Is an expression
because what this guy argues doesn't even hold within its own framework.
Positive freedom. Negative
yeah, it doesn't. It's that bad.
Is the freedom from coercion by others.
Yes, okay. Not being imposed upon by others. Okay, fair enough.
An example of this would be the freedom to speak freely without fearing retribution from the state. These two types of freedom can be summed up as freedom to and freedom from. They often get tangled up and end up in conflict with one another, as in the gun...
In conflict? No. Almost never. Now he's going to make, oh, guns, right? Listen to his flawed reasoning.
For example, I have the right to carry a gun in public versus I have the right to walk around without the threat of being shot. There will always be...
Okay, there. That's his first fallacy, okay? I have the right to walk around without being shot versus I have the right to carry. That's not a contradiction. Do you want to know why it's not a contradiction? Because you're not acting... Well, I say this. You are, sir, not acting to promote your own freedoms when you do not carry your own gun. In order to eliminate the threat of being shot by others, you must engage in your own security. And listen, you don't even have to go ahead and carry around a gun. You can call the police, hire a bodyguard, make your own standing army or militia, or remove yourself from instances where there are high amounts of criminal activity. All legitimate solutions that you have the freedom to do. you are sacrificing your freedom from something by failing to use the freedoms to do something. If you often fail to exercise one, you put yourself in a position where you'll be compromised in the other. That's why people think that they're inextricably linked.
Be disagreement surrounding the issue of which form of freedom.
But again, that was just an idiotic plug for, my gun bans.
That this kind of economy offers a positive or negative freedom as its value proposition. A positive freedom would be, I am entitled to a guaranteed fair share of the economy.
Yeah, that's a positive freedom. That's not the positive freedom, though, you're getting from engaging in capitalism. Let's talk about first the negative freedom, then we'll lead into the positive.
That doesn't fit. What about a negative freedom? I am entitled to operate in the economy without coercion by powerful groups. That's...
Yeah, exactly. You are able to engage as a player in the market, and you're not necessarily forced into doing so. And that is, in fact, you are still free, and I mean free, that's still I'm gonna die on, free to play as you, to play as you will, right? Not only to be a player, not to be a player, but your freedom to, your positive freedom, is to play as you will and get reward proportionate to the value that you give. And this is, second thoughts, cognitive dissonance. He cannot separate. He himself condemns the idea, or rather says that it is not the case that I am entitled to a guaranteed fair share of the economy in capitalism, right? And yet, the only framework that really the best framework to ensure that everyone gets proportionally reward and actually a fair share proportionate to the work, the value they actually provide. Right? There's a problem here. This is the very framework that he does all of his thinking from. He cannot empathize with his opposition. Everything that he makes, really. He makes emotional appeals first, followed by some very flawed rationalizations, as opposed to making any sort of logical claim or empirical, just anything empirical. He fails to make certain observations, and again, instead acts upon certain anecdotes, right? Certain illustrations. But I'm going to get to those.
Those people see the government as the only entity capable of exerting control over the economy. Government...
You mean capitalists? Do you mean capitalists think that the government is the only entity capable of exerting control over the economy? Did he just say that?
Free market enthusiasts have chosen to describe the freedom afforded by capitalism. Here's the problem. Those people see the government as the only entity capable of exerting control over the economy. Government power...
Free market capitalists see... Where are these free market capitalists that say government is the only... Yeah, there's a problem here. Free market enthusiasts would naturally be the best informed. Don't you contend that other parties can also control the economy? How can you be an enthusiast but not know what you're talking about? You have to have an iota of what you're talking about if you're actually an enthusiast.
Capitalism not only fails to guarantee its people a fair share of the economy, positive freedom, it also fails to prevent the meddling of disproportionate...
Your guarantee is a value that you provide to the market. You will be rewarded for the value you provide to the market, and by extension to other people.
Powerful entities in the economy. Negative freedom. Tax laws are always written to benefit the top 1%. Energy policy...
Yeah. Why is it written to benefit the 1%? Well, let's see. Do they have the money to lobby? Yeah. Do they foot the bill for most of the for pretty much everything that we have going on here? Yeah. They contribute almost all of our taxes. This isn't secret. This is no secret. I don't even need to really go to Google and Google. How much does 1% contribute to America's taxes? It's pretty bonkers. There is a problem. If you're so concerned about fairness, the 1% have then a very vested interest in determining some of the policy that goes on here. If you don't like the 1%, or rather, if you want the 1% to keep footing the bill, but then you don't respect their ability to determine some of what goes on here via lobbying and or things like that of that nature, right? Then that's cognitive dissonance right there. You yourself are going to later on argue that people should get, and he does argue this in another future video too, about worker-run companies, so to speak. The people who put in the effort, the greatest effort, right, and do all the legwork should get a very sizable say. Why does according to you, why doesn't 1%, if they do all the legwork for our taxes, for support of our government, why should they not get a big say? You're not establishing this.
Policies always benefit massively wealthy fossil fuel companies, despite their effect on the climate. Why?
Despite their effect on the climate. Okay, here's the thing. The government doesn't owe Mother Nature. The government doesn't place Mother Nature above its own denizens, okay? You're not making for a very productive, happy, useful, fulfilled society if you're too busy placating to abstract concepts that aren't as sentient as us or have an in-group preference towards us.
This is a direct result of runaway capitalism. The accumulation of obscene levels
the old runaway capitalism, the gilded baron robber, or whatever the hell,
of wealth in the hands of a...
By the way, this sort of reactionary thinking to the Industrial Revolution, something that has passed more than 100 years ago, really, the advent of the Industrial Revolution was like, what, 100 to 150 years ago, right? That sort of thinking, that mindset, never left blokes like this.
Take another example. America has a for-profit healthcare system. It's incredibly lucrative, worth a staggering $3.65 trillion as of 2018. In a humane system, average people would be able to afford medical treatment.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, by the way, I'm going to make an upcoming video about how do we make socialized healthcare, because everyone wants it, viable. The number one way to ensure that the system is lucrative and people still want to go into it, right? But people are not being charged up the wazoo, because here's the thing. If you don't make it lucrative, no one wants to do it. What you do is first off, cut down the amount of years that you need to take in order to become a doctor or a medical professional. You need to abridge the college experience, because you don't want doctors, right, to have a bunch of generalized knowledge, okay? If you're in the first world, you are able to outsource any needs, most needs that you have, to other people. That's the beautiful thing about capitalism. You can't do in a third world nation where you have to become as generally knowledgeable as possible. You want many different skills, a jack of all trades if you would. However, in a capitalist system like this, an advanced one where we are rewarded for specialization, a master gets the big bucks. When you're the best at one gosh darn thing that provides a lot of value, you'll be rewarded for it. Furthermore, you want to disempower certain things that have a stranglehold or squeeze on how many doctors that there are in the United States, okay? The more doctors that there are, the less, the lower that everyone will need to be able to undercut now. There's a greater supply of doctors that can actually treat you, and therefore, by the way, doctors that still have the specialized knowledge they need to work on you, right? I'm not bridging their education just to dumb them down. If anything, I'm putting them out there and making sure that they're geared towards what they're going to be doing. You cut down the amount of time required to get into medical school and to do medical school. And you cut down the amount of time you can do for fellowship, and make sure the things like Medical American Association and other unions that I'm going to get into. I'll get into unions. If you use them to actually process people sooner, you will have easy socialized medicine. You will not believe how cheap all all of your surgeries, all of your visits, all of your emergency situations are going to be if you follow my plan, okay? But in this current state, you can't transplant a Canadian system, socialized medicine, and expect it to work. It's going to be a net loss. It will not pay for itself. It is welfare. You do not want that. You do not want welfare when a privatized system can do it better.
Not the case in America. Before the pandemic hit, there were over 137 million Americans struggling to pay their medical bills. Again, that was before the pandemic. We've had 6.5 million confirmed...
And by the way, I do feel for that. And by the way, if you're struggling for medical bills, it's a good idea to get either A, your own private insurance, or B, Medicaid, okay? Medicaid, if you fall below a certain tax bracket, last time I checked, it's free. You can get free. The bill is footed by taxpayers. When you're taking that isolated instance of crazy runaway medical bills, right? And you're saying this applies to all capitalism, well, there's your problem, kid. What you have right there is too much regulation is actually giving you your problem.
People having to choose between going bankrupt and risking dying of preventable medical conditions is a damning indictment of our capitalist system.
The problem with the medical system is that by the way, the foremost thing is not that it's for profit. It's not necessarily that it charges so much. It's that it understands that it makes a killing off of basically level 1 treatment and up. What do I mean by that? There is level 0 treatment. This magical thing called preventative work. Yes, most people don't opt into that. The best thing that you can do is create a society that values its health. Eliminate rubbish like body positivity. Make sure that school work that you do in school are much more rigorous, okay? And I guarantee you will have a healthy society. Remember, a pound of prevention is worth more than an ounce of cure, whatever the saying is.
By choosing profits over all else, our hyper-capitalist healthcare industry has limited our freedom to reasonably priced care and...
Again, government intervention pushes it more towards socialism than capitalist or hyper-capitalist. But he doesn't understand this analog.
Our freedom from the fear of bankruptcy for basic health.
He sees big institutions about any sort of very much competition, right? He sees government, kind of wheeling and dealing. He's like, oh, that's hyper capitalism, right? No, that's inherently anti-free market.
Health services. You have the freedom to start a business, but the end goal of capitalism is ever-increasing profits, and your business will likely fail as our system refuses to provide a level playing field.
Okay, you're not due, my dude. You are not due inherently just because you open a business. You're not, no one owes you, and this is for some reason he thinks that, even though he condemned earlier that he's due a fair share of the market. For some reason, he's going into with the mindset now that he's owed, because he opened a business, in this hypothetical example, a fair share of the market. Or is it rules for thee and not for me hour? I can't remember.
Destroyed by the pandemic, but the country's billionaires and wealthiest corporations
that's my favorite.
have seen a dramatic increase in net worth. Wow.
Okay, yeah, there's a problem with that. I'm going to offer quite a few rebels to that. First off, Amazon is an inherently resistant, or rather, Amazon doesn't get hurt by lockdowns. They didn't really shut down Amazon fulfillment centers. That was an essential business, okay? People, when they order from Amazon, do so from online, and therefore can do so conveniently without moving from their house because of the lockdowns, and receive it quickly and cheaply too. That's why Amazon turned over a massive profit as other places were eliminated due to government intervention, which is again anti-capitalist, people had to rely more upon Amazon to fill their needs. That's nothing novel. And he can only point to, in his tiny little microcosm, he can only point to Jeff Bezos. That's the bane of his existence. He's envious, he really is.
Why? Because they were taken care of. They were bailed out or able to capitalize on the suffering of others. As of June...
Yes, clearly they were able to capitalize on the suffering of others. Because here's the problem with these bailouts, okay? They're being bailed out to line their pockets? No, they're getting bailed out because they're suffering too. And, by the way, there's a reason why. Right? There's a reason why this is actually happening. The problem with second thought, he doesn't understand the concept of Keynesian economics. He thinks that the rich aren't really paying their fair share, despite them footing the bill for the most of the taxes. And he doesn't understand that in order to move past Keynesian economics, to make Keynesian economics actually Keynesian and not destructive retardation, you need to make sure you keep intact a taxable base after a crisis. That's why they're keeping them alive. That's why there's these bailouts. Do you want to know the problem here, ladies and gentlemen? You know, there's certain places, around here, across the nation, that somehow are magically going up in smoke. I wonder why. Lockdowns. Government doing some dumb market manipulation again. Can't be possibly that. I mean, it's not like all these retailers and places like 24-hour fitness, as well as the fitness industry has been destroyed. It's not like certain shipping and logistics companies and like plane, cruise liners or stuff like that, airliners, they're not shutting down or anything like that. No, that can't possibly be the case. Why do they need these bailouts? It's not like these companies are the lifeblood of our nation's government and where it gets its money from. I mean, it's not like the biggest funders of welfare happen to be these companies. Can't possibly be the case.
The country's wealthiest people had gotten $637 billion richer over the course of the pandemic.
Okay, here's the magic, by the way. $637 billion out of our total, private market GDP, right? Of all the private sector, that's not massive, right? That's not the lion's share, okay? If there weren't the lockdowns, that number, actually, I would contend, would be bigger. And not only that, but more of the elite would be included into that number. It's almost like he thinks that... I wouldn't be surprised if second thought was of this conspiracy theory sort, to think that Amazon's behind the pandemic. It'd be funny if he thought that.
But how can you compete against these corporate leviathans that monopolize the economy and can demand whatever legislation they want from those in power?
Okay, now earlier how I said that they're in their complete and total right to lobby the people that we elect, who are reflections of ourselves, are ones that need to be held accountable too. They also have their right to protect, and by the way, I know actually it's their obligation, to protect our rights and our interests. Corruption is something that seeps in slowly, so again, term limits. And also have committees that hold these people accountable through the means of checks and balances, rather than an authoritarian socialist government. You do those things, you'll be golden. It's in the interest of politicians to balance, again, the interests of all of their constituents, of all their voter base, as the companies, as with the people. If you, little person, aren't satisfied with your position, then get more power, get more influence.
Okay. Free market enthusiasts will say that relationships between workers and employers are free and equal. If you hate your job, you have the freedom to leave and find another one. But if small businesses...
Again, not when you go ahead and enter government. When you set in government and labor unions, now that power balance becomes much more dynamic. And with the advent again of self-employment and the free market, the modern free market, the digital age, allowing more people to market more skills, talent, services than ever before, it is now in fact more viable than ever to become self-employed and be your own master.
Pay you a decent wage because they can't compete, and large companies are all trying to maximize profits by cutting costs and extracting as much labor from their workers for as little money.
Yes, that's the point. Or rather, that's how you turn over a profit. They're not charities. They already do enough charity work by giving again to all of your welfare programs that you keep gushing over. They're the biggest philanthropists in the world, whether you like it or not. Big business are the greatest philanthropists. I'm surprised you still hate them, but again, nothing in your world is logically consistent.
Because they can't compete, and large companies are all trying to maximize profits by cutting costs and extracting as much labor from their workers for as little money as possible, you're unlikely to find a job that will offer a living wage.
You're unlikely to find a job that will offer a living wage? What are you talking about, my dude? Now, again, people are only getting paid more and more as time goes on. When you say a living wage, well, most jobs are out there aren't really minimum wage. Well, if this being an economy that can outsource so many of its needs, right, or even wants, discretionary spending, to outside providers and suppliers, there are less minimum wage jobs. Well, maybe not necessarily less, but proportionate to everything else, relative to everything else, there are less. Why? Because as we are developing as a society and developing more specialized fields and trades, there are more jobs now than ever that will allow you to use this specialized knowledge. You can't go ahead and tell me, right, the jobs don't pay a living wage. Yeah, okay, here's the thing. Minimum wage isn't intended to be living wage. Minimum wage is intended to be for people who are entering the market as a player. It is intended for people who are getting off the ground. It is intended for young people who can afford to work 2 jobs. Why? Because they will inevitably work their way up as they gain more experience and climb the corporate hierarchy. Yes, thank you.
Capitalism treats basic necessities like commodities: healthcare, food, water, shelter.
Okay. Would you rather have it be treated, these basic necessities, as a commodity, where the person selling it to you extracts the value from it via you giving them money? Or would you rather you killing someone over these basic necessities? That's what a power vacuum is. That's what a power vacuum is. And inevitably, if you were supposed to be like, oh, but socialism, everyone gets equally, right? Everyone does not get equally according to their need, all right? There's a problem. When people are paid to do the bare minimum, I mean, they're going to do the bare minimum, right? If you let them get away with it, because here's the thing. If you have a capitalism system, people are advised to do their best, because then they'll get the best returns for the value they provide. If you're doing socialism, people will get paid anyway, so they will do the minimum required to get away with it. Now, in doing so, your basic necessities, your resources, you can't distribute as much of it. It will create scarcity, and those that are willing to actually pay more for it, well, they can't get their hands on these basic resources. These people that need more of them can't get their hands on it, because they're already being given to someone who may not value it as much, or people who are net drains. Money is an evaluatory system, okay? It is not monopoly money. It's not monopoly money that you think it is. The fact that you think it's so infantile for people and exploitative of people to go ahead and use money, again, it says some choice things about you, second thought. Give it a third.
American is compelled to sell their labor and hours of their life for whatever wage they can find, simply to cover the skyrocketing cost of housing. That's not freedom.
Okay, you know what? I am completely for bursting the housing bubble. it's untenable, and especially in urban areas, how government keeps subsidizing housing and a bunch of other this bogus nonsense. The best thing that we can do to ensure that we have wages that can actually pay for housing and basic necessities is to let the housing market crash and reset itself. Let the laws of supply and let the free market reorganize itself. I guarantee you will get better houses on pricing because, dang, inflation didn't even do this, okay? You see the mortgage in some of the buildings in New York City? Stuff can get into the millions really, really, really quick. It's ridiculous.
That's coercion. Take the workplace itself.
Excuse me?
Housing. That's not free labor and hours of their life for whatever wage they can find simply to cover the skyrocketing cost of housing.
Okay, there's another problem. When you are dealing with basic necessities, would you rather go all the way off to a farm to raise all of the food that you will need, right? Spend yourself under the burning sun for 10 hours a day, or work a minimum wage job for maybe 4 or 5, part-time, right? 4 or 5 hours a day, part-time. Maybe you do get full-time, right? Would you rather work that minimum wage job? Maybe 40 hours a week at most. Earn your pay, go home, have all the luxuries of the modern world, of the first world, of the first world in the United States, or would you rather have the farm experience? All the calluses and the blisters, the sunburn, having no time to indulge in very much else because you're always working. Yeah, I'd rather not sign up for Second Thoughts Commune. What about you guys?
That's not freedom. That's coercion.
Again, these people, companies, aren't being like, this isn't for you. You must now slave for me. You're welcome to go out and get these resources for yourself. And there are ways you can avoid having to pay rent. There are ways you can live for free even. As long as you can provide value. You can become a farmhand if this is what you want. You'll still get your housing and your clothing and your even some money and your food. It's not coercion, okay? You cannot be liberated from your innate human physical needs. You hunger, you thirst. Companies are making sure you can get these things easier. And you have more time to do whatever you want than before. That's coercion?
Itself. You are subjected to the whims of the employer, no matter how demeaning or unfair.
Oh yeah, you know what I mean. If they want me to strip on the job, I strip. I mean, I know there's a lot of guys there's a lot of guys and girls. I mean, on the floor, well, yeah, whenever the boss wants me to strip, I do it. Yeah, right. I'm not the boss's whim. Even at will, even the insidious at will employment status. Even then, you still have your rights. And by the way, you might be wondering, what about they can fire you? Okay, but trade unions are a thing. Government legislation are a thing. Departments of labor are a thing now.
Constant schedule changes.
But guys like this are stuck again in industrial age thinking. They haven't evolved. They haven't learned to grow since the 1800s. He's still stuck all the way back then.
Demands to come in to cover a shift. Restriction of freedom of speech. You are completely at the mercy of someone who...
Okay. When it comes, and this is the one time that rights actually collide, is when you have two different parties where there's a certain friction, okay? That's where the arbitrating entity known as government comes in. Sometimes when there's a certain overlap of interest, government has to arbitrate between the two. There is never any contradiction between freedom froms and freedom from and freedom tos. However, there at times can be a contradiction if your exercise of your rights is in fact harming the rights of the company that you are working for or violating the terms of your agreement the company does have a certain right to fire you or deal with you as they will.
Who can fire you
No, not murder.
any reason or no reason at all, simply because you cannot afford not to work.
Only at will employment.
If people don't have the luxury of taking time off to find another job, because that would
even then it's mutual.
Payment. You will be kicked out of your home and starve if you don't engage in the soul-crushing meat grinder that...
No, second thought. No. You will not be kicked out of your home and starved. You are the only person who is enslaving yourself. It all comes down to you. Dude, you are at the center of everything that happens to you. I know. For some reason, for someone as solipsistic as you that cannot empathize with people from different walks of life who happen to have power proportionate to the value they give to the market, for some, and by extension us, for some reason you do not understand that you determine these things.
The American labor market. That's not freedom. I can hear it now. If you don't like...
I know. You can hear it from me right now. If you do not like being able to get food or whatever on demand, or you don't like the prospect of starving, you don't like having to freaking have a house over your head, if you don't like having to work for all these things, okay, you're no longer human. You unhuman yourself. That's what you do, okay? You're not any less free. Dude, you're not any less free because you have hunger and you need to feed yourself. And you have to, again, go down to the grocery store and just get an apple or whatever. The grocery store isn't robbing you, making it easier. You don't have to drive down to your apple farm or whatever. You don't have to put a ladder up against a tree, climb up, take the peril of doing that, grab an apple, and then descend. You can get it way easier. They pay the guy to pick the apples and to another guy to deliver the apples to the store. And all you have to do is pay like maybe 50 cents for an apple. It's a sweet deal.
You can just leave. How? How can the average American disengage with this coercive system? Even if you wanted to, say, live on your own land and...
Dude, why would you want to disengage with the... Again, I already established. Why would you want to disengage with a coercive system that feeds me at the best possible rates? Why would you want to do that? Why would you want to work on your bloody farm? I already gave you all the reasons why it's a bad idea. Do you know how much it makes? Do you know how much it costs to make a hamburger? Do you know how much it costs to make a hamburger? It costs easily in the thousands. You have to buy your baby calf and raise it. You have to get all the grain too, and all the materials. Not only feed the cow, but also to make the hamburger buns. You need the oven or stove or the grill or whatever to go ahead and cook the burger. And again, yes, the oven or whatever to actually make the grain into the bread. You need your tomato. You need your lettuce. You need your sesame seeds. You need your freaking. You need your land to go ahead and amass all this stuff on your ranch/farm. You need the pay for the laborer to make all the fencing and all of the harvesting equipment. All to make a hamburger. And you're telling me it's coercion?
Thereby removing the power of the coercive capitalist system. In order to escape, you need capital. You need enough money to buy the land, which is already impossible for most people, then the funds to build a home, however small.
Okay, by the way, it's not impossible for most people, okay? You just save over time, you amass your wealth, go out west. Because land is, again, you go in the Midwest, land is cheap there. There are some towns. They will give it to you for free. You will get your land for free, sir. There are a few towns that will give you it for free. Don't give me this nonsense, second thought. You can legitimately do it if you want. But think about all the the opportunity cost you're passing up. Again, not only is it costing the thousands to get all this underway, right? But again, you can if you actually wait. Like, the biggest thing is just the cost of the land and the cow. If you want to make that hamburger. Everything else, yeah, if you work, you can get it easy.
There's no way for the average American to accumulate that kind of money. The vast majority of capital is concentrated at the very top, and it's only getting worse. In 2019,
is that really a problem though? Is economic inequality necessarily a bad thing when the companies at top are actually running things, actually providing for this market pretty well? Let's see here.
The richest person on the Forbes Top 400 list was 21 times wealthier than the richest person on the list in 1982.
Whoa, they're 21 times richer? It must be like they're stealing money. I mean, it's not like that, the average American household income has grown by 3 times as well, actually, to $68,700 from 1982. No, it's not like that. Not at all.
Adjusted for inflation. That money isn't just coming out of thin air. It's being siphoned from the rest of the population. That money
clearly. Clearly it's being siphoned up, right? Because income inequality, all the horrors. Unions have not really been all but eradicated. I'll tell you what's happened. They faded into obscurity. B, no one really joined them anymore. Or C, not really unions anymore. What am I talking about? The teachers' union. That's now pretty much more of like a freaking action and lobbying group. Political action and lobbying group. Okay? My dad works for a hotel trades union. That's one of the few legitimate unions left, okay? Other than that, unions? They lobby a hell of a ton. Either that, or again, what unions are inherently do, protect the rights of workers and help for collective bargaining. They've pushed legislation and helped influence legislation that protects the individual worker, and that's something that I want to be concerned with. Protecting the rights of the individual worker, not putting them at the mercy of the collective. Unions were intended to do the job that government couldn't. And now that it's doing so, a better job now more than ever of protecting the rights of the worker, unions are becoming obsolete.
Bargaining for better treatment, and most people can't cover a surprise $400 expense. You don't even have the freedom to disengage from the capitalist system. This...
Again, like, why would you want to? Okay, well, you can't disengage. Oh, well, have you tried engaging in it so that you can disengage? I mean, it's not like you can retire at... it's like you retire at like 65, right? In some Asian country for pretty cheap. Or South American. Seriously, there are people who are particularly rich in South American countries who just worked here, saved money for their retirement. And by the way, that's one of the reasons why most people can't afford to pay a surprise $400 medical expense. They're not saving. Ever since the advent of Social Security, people aren't saving as much. And then you wonder.
System, and by extension, your life, is owned by the ultra-wealthy. This is...
Clearly. Oh, yes, clearly. I myself am owned by the ultra-wealthy. You know what? If we were to take that logic, I'd rather have that than socialism, where I'm not only the state's property, but everyone else's property, and my company's property, too. Seems that would be living hell. I really hope this guy's in a socialist. He sounds a lot like it, though. From the framework that he's coming from, and the idea that he's owed everything. By the way, if you look back at his original definition of positive freedom, having the capacity to act according to one's own free will, you do realize that free will is not encompassed in our bodily urges and our need for, again, clothes, food, shelter. That's our more primal instinct. You cannot attain freedom from nature. There is no such thing. Yet for some reason you persist in this and think that not only that, but you are entitled to. You disagree with your premises. You contradict yourself, you hypocrite. You disagree that in the capitalist system you are owed basic things such as food, water. Rather, you disagree that you are owed a fair market share, which would then allow you to get, your food and your water and stuff like that. And then you wonder why capitalism isn't giving you these things. Yes, it's not capitalism's responsibility. It's responsibility to your fellow man to produce value for them so you can get these things for yourself. How is that not a humanitarian system? For some reason, the idea of work sounds like, oh, he's exploiting me. Dude, I push around a shopping cart for a living and put things in the shopping cart in a store. There are jobs out there that pay you above minimum wage for this sort of nonsense. I get paid above minimum wage. I make pretty much, almost 50% more than minimum wage in my state. You're telling me? You're telling me I'm being exploited? You kidding me? That was easy.
Logical conclusion of capitalism and decades of consolidation of wealth.
You can too, by the way.
And power in the hands of an increasingly small number of oligarchs. Capitalism.
There are more millionaires now than there ever been before. Shut up. Dude, you can Google this for yourself. There are more millionaires, way more millionaires now than there ever been in the past. Dude, don't. The middle class is shrinking, right? Because again, more government gives me that, okay? The government is asking for more, or is handing out more on welfare than ever. Yes, and raising taxes consequently, but they're raising more on welfare. They're paying out more on welfare than ever, and disincentivizing people from working, right? Because they can get free stuff. They get free and reduced lunches for their kids. They get property tax freezes. They get all of these things, and that's why they're making less, because they don't need to work as much. Plus, people aren't. But you gauge social economic status by the household income. The individual is considered a household. Do you know why the median in household income is is not really increasing as fast as it ought to, or as you would like it to, right? One of the big reasons is because people aren't getting married now, right? That joint income is seen as one entity. That's why that's why you're arguing so much that the middle class is going to be shrinking, or rather, you might argue that, right? Because A, people don't they need to work as much, and B, people aren't getting married, so not jointly filing.
Capitalism cannot solve these problems because it doesn't recognize them as problems. The system is designed to solve these problems because it doesn't recognize them as problems.
Okay. Nowadays it's really hard to become... Actually, we have a doctor shortage. That's why. That's why I keep telling you. My plan for... If you want to socialize medicine, dude, make it so that people can go to college and become a doctor way easier. Abridge all of the generalized knowledge stuff, and abridge some of the not so much of the specialized stuff, but make it so that the AMA has to train people sooner, and make the AMA train more people. So the American Medical Association. You want to know why it's so? You want to know the reason why medical costs are so baloney? Unions, technically unions, like the American Medical Association and all this other stuff that actually gatekeeps the trade of becoming a doctor. Yes, that's how you solve your problem. The medical costs. That too, and you want to know why it's becoming more expensive? Because people are getting harder to operate on. People are also getting themselves more and more sick. Why is this? People are becoming fatter. Obesity is an epidemic. No, it's a freaking pandemic. It's getting worse as time goes on. Plus, all the subsequent health problems associated with becoming obese. Your respiratory problems with your circulatory system, the fact that you can't engage in appropriate cognition, or otherwise your all the parts of your body aren't getting as much oxygen flow because of the constriction on the veins. It's altogether horrible for your health, your bones decreasing quality because they're so much more stressed than they ought to be. They're not getting... Because, if you're fat, you're probably living a sedentary lifestyle, right? So your bones are becoming weaker, and they're under more stress from all the weight. Oh, it's ridiculous how many problems you have. And you'll wonder why medical costs are going up.
The system is designed to allow for maximization of profit and will always yield monopoly.
Companies have to charge more. Medical companies have to charge more because it's getting harder to acquire labor, and it's getting harder to operate on people and to provide. Just in general, people need more. They need more medical attention than ever before. It's ridiculous. And then you wonder why they're charging more. This guy doesn't know.
And vast inequality. Corporations like Amazon can end careers and the future of entire cities by picking up and moving to a better tax haven.
They can ruin careers by moving. Amazon could hurt all of us. Amazon isn't causing his careers to go away. It might be ending careers personally, but those careers are still effectively there. What am I talking about? When they move, they need to hire more people, right? Those jobs didn't vanish. They moved. And by the way, you're welcome to move with Amazon too.
Every time, because it makes them more money. Living your life
doesn't make them more money, it saves them more cost because government's being a douchebag to them.
At the mercy of the owner class doesn't sound like freedom to me. The vision of a free...
Dude, capitalism lets you be your own boss. I don't know how many times I have to keep saying it to you. Why? Dude, you are your own boss. This is the hypocrisy. He keeps making emotional arguments that everyone is exploiting us while he's in the corner counting his little dollar bills, making it rain from all the content he's producing, griping about the evils of capitalism. I have almost 1 million subscribers on YouTube. We're all poor. We're all being exploited. Yeah, okay. You go on and run into YouTube and tell them about how exploited you are. See how long you keep your platform for.
Free America and...
Oh, right, I forgot. You're your own content creator. Right. As a matter of fact, you have your own platform called Nebula. Oh, right. You're an entrepreneur. You make your own money. Oh, right. Now you see where your argument begins to crumble, second thought.
Our life expectancy is decreasing.
Our life expectancy is decreasing because we're making poor health decisions. Seriously, our health is declining. That's our choice. We're not eating as healthy as we once did. People are being more sedentary than ever before. That's not people robbing you. Heck, you can get things from like Whole Foods. You can get things from Whole Foods, my dude. Start eating healthier today. I mean, Whole Foods makes organic food at least viable. You can still buy stuff from there, not at a ridiculous cost. It's not a criminal cost. Okay, you can eat healthy. It's possible. Heck, you can go on a Walmart diet and eat healthy. You can go on a McDonald's diet and eat healthy. Right? You don't have to go a supersizing route. You can viably live on McDonald's and be healthy enough.
Can't get medical treatment because it will bankrupt us. We can't start a bit.
Again, tell me all about the winners of Medicaid.
At this point in history, there is nothing capitalism can offer us that a more humane system could not.
Okay. Yeah, okay. Yeah, here's a magic bullet for you. Okay. Capitalism has ushered in all of the wonderful technologies that we use here today. Okay? Capitalism, as many of you almost social, I swear you're socialist types may believe, does not deprive people of anything. It offers them the chance to be extended. It's a handshake. It's a transaction. All of these things you do not have to fight or struggle for. You work a little bit, or you find some other way to get it. You sign up for government welfare. Congratulations. You get your apple. You can eat for the day, okay? Capitalism leads to the invention of many different things that help us to survive from nature. And if you're going to go on any sort of alternative route, you are halting all the wonderful things to come. Now we might just be past the age of ever needing anything again. But we will be wanting. And I guarantee you, your Amazon 30-minute shipping will not be a reality, okay? Here's the thing. We want things sooner, better, faster, cheaper. we're always going to want it, and capitalism is the only thing that can give it to us. If you want to successfully enact any other system that again, like, doesn't have some sort of authoritative bent, you're going to need. I mean, that's the thing. You're going to need authoritative bent, unless you're able to extract from humans and eliminate from them the the innate wanting that we have for things. And but then again, you're the type to think that we for some reason we're not free because we have physical needs. So I don't know where you're all over the place today.
It's just a matter of realizing that we've been conditioned by decades of propaganda
clearly
to see capitalism as a synonym for freedom.
Yes, of course. That's what my entire schooling experience was, right? I mean, I totally wasn't surrounded by classmates that hated the notion of capitalism and complain about them having to work for free stuff, almost like you, actually. No, that's totally not the case. Like, I was absolutely conditioned into that. It's like all my teachers, whenever I brought up the notion that I wanted to become an entrepreneur or stuff like that, had some snide comments for me. No, that totally wasn't the case. I was conditioned to think that capitalism was perfect. Dude.
Capitalism does not provide freedom. It suppresses it. Okay,
oh, clearly.
So what's the solution?
It suppresses it. My dude, you try so hard. You're trying so hard. Everyone wants to be the rebellion. Everyone wants to be the resistance. And yet he still, when he finishes this video, when he hits the end button and publish it, he starts counting up all the money that he's making. Oh, it's so funny. So perfect. But yes, what is the solution? What is the solution? Because you have yet to actually give me one. I want to hear from you. What's your solution, second thought?
That depends on who you ask.
No. What's your solution, second thought? Tell me about your solution.
Some people think we can reform the system at the ballot box. Others think electoral politics is a dead end.
Dude, become powerful. Seriously, just become powerful. Get your own influence and power. Then you can influence other people. And then you can influence your politicians, really. If you play the game, you can get somewhere. Even if not that high up, you can still get somewhere, or at least ensure your own security. That's for sure.
Means may not be clear, but the end goal is...
Really? I can give you a detailed plan. Yeah, come on. Instagram at we.rwicked. YouTube, Wicked Generation. I'm right here. Email address. I'll give you my email address. You PM me on YouTube. We'll talk. I'll give you my email address. We'll set up a time. I'll debate you. Second thought. Just come on. We'll do it. I'll tell you everything you need to know. I'll drop for you. I'll drop for you the hot picks. Believe me.
We need to replace capitalism with a system.
No foreplay. We'll go right into it, my man.
Values human life over profits. One that actually does expand our freedom.
Okay.
Provides
people don't. Again, my dude. People don't value each other's well-being right off the rip unless there's some sentiment. All right. The way you incentivize people to take care of other people and prioritize human well-being is, well, ironically by, I guess, putting everything through the sleeve, through the medium of money, of providing value to get value. Dude, it's so easy. You have, all you have to do is just harness the inherent greed of humans, right? Or at least their drive and desire to provide a satisfactory survival for themselves, and yet benefit everyone else around them. And the person still walks away with a good chunk of change, is able to afford much more than they ever could, as opposed to working on their own. It's a beautiful thing, really. But yeah, tell me about this.
Person with a life.
Okay.
If you've been watching my channel for a while, you'll know that I think socialism is the answer. Look at the things we have.
Guys, I can't hold it together anymore. The vampire's out of the coffin. The curtains open to reveal He's a socialist shill. Oh, he's gonna plug Eugene V. Debs, of course. Oh, Democrat contributors, minimum fair wage or fair minimum wage. Oh, yeah, yeah, sure, yeah. All these magical things. All the free gives me that. Hey, well, you know what? At least freedom of press and speech was a good one.
Are a direct result of socialist policy. Child labor laws.
Child labor laws. Child labor laws, yes, actually. Child labor laws. I figured he would go this route. Well, actually, I did prelude some of it. I did actually watch some of it ahead, so maybe some of this is a little wonky, but yes. Do you want to know it first, people? Do you want to know it first, people? And then you have this rubbish too. It's not the express work of socialists. The most effective people were, in fact, this guy. This guy was a Democrat. Samuel L. Gompers. It's not a socialist idea to have child labor laws. And by the way, well, it might not actually have been a great idea back in the day to have child labor because conditions were much more dangerous for them. Now, I mean, even then before, like, children, if they had the option between going to school and working, they chose working. I kid you not. I actually post that. If you look in secret content, unlocked, down below in the description box, I'll post you a source or two about why children actually preferred to work. These are nothing particularly socialist.
The weekend, the 40-hour work week,
the weekend,
Medicare, Social Security, workplace safety laws, the 8-hour workday, and many others. Look.
Half of those things are other nonsense and BS and, like, just a horrible idea. None of those things already exist. Child labor laws. Okay, good for the time. Yeah. The weekend. Let's see here. It's not like the Western world was predicated upon Judeo-Christian values. It's not like Jews worshipped on Saturdays and the Sabbath, and Christians worshipped on Sunday. No, that can't be it. The 40-hour work week. Oh, you mean the distinction between part-time and full-time, and that's why no employer, like very few employers, want to keep you? The pay wage want to keep you over 40 hours a week so you can't get as much money? Jeez, thanks. Medicare. I hate Medicare. Dude, Social Security. Medicare and Social Security are Ponzi schemes. They are such total baloney. They siphon the life and energy out of everyone. And the money, good golly. If there's anything more insidious and more outdated that needed to have been gotten rid of, Medicare and Social Security, they're not sustainable, especially Social Security. It's not, why are you triumphing that? That's not a good thing, dude. Workplace safety laws. But again, even people like Democrats, like, again, biggest guy, Samuel L. Gomper is the biggest name. That's not something that only the socialists were advocating for. I don't know why you're claiming it, like, as an absolute. The 8-hour workday, again, less opportunity to make money. I mean, heck, my last job, actually, yeah, they were very reluctant to keep me on more than 8 hours. It was kind of far and few between, and I needed the money. Far and few in between when I would be able to work 10 hours. I would have loved to work 10 hours more consistently.
Look at this list. Does anything stand out to you?
Yeah. Medicare, Social Security, actually, everything except for child labor laws and workplace safety laws stands out as complete and utter rubbish.
Besides being staples of modern life, each of these policies defies the capitalist goal of profit over all else.
Yeah, so it seems like we're at an impasse. We both want to overturn the system. Yeah, we want to do entirely different things with it, don't we?
Children were great workers because they were small enough to crawl inside giant factory machines and you could pay them less.
Yeah, and that's why we have outlawed to this day. Totally. Yeah. No, it's not like we have technicians or anything like that.
We're used to an 8-hour workday today, but in the past, people would work 12 hours or more in a shift.
Yeah, I wish I could work 12 hours or more if I wanted to.
Making workplaces safer was expensive, and business owners didn't want to do that. Without socialists and other leftists fighting to keep capitalism from going...
But again, one of the wonderful things about capitalism, you developed safer machinery and the means to outsource work to not little teeny boppers you gotta pay and deal with the lawsuits from, but technicians who are qualified to do the things and have a higher success rate and be less of a liability.
Going completely off the rails, we'd be in an even worse place than we are today. Human life is infinitely more valuable than corporate profits. Many Americans are finally beginning to see...
Dude, you're telling me all these things. You're making all these emotional arguments. You're making all these grand-sweeping statements. But if we're going to apply this logic, you're basically saying the world's most effective serial killers or corporate overlords. Last time I checked, you just said they gave people careers and livelihoods. Did you not?
That it's built on...
What is here for rent in a U.S. state? Again, they can't afford minimum wage in any U.S. state if it's urban. The urban trend, the urban housing bubble, needs to pop, gosh darn it. And by golly, it will. I guarantee it. The problem with why, one of the biggest problems as to why property prices are so ridiculous is that, and rent by extension, is also because of the obscene property taxes in urban areas. They're more likely to host massive welfare too. You can go a long way in decreasing the amount of inflation and inflation, the prices for housing experience by cutting welfare, but you won't because I'm a socialism. Look at all these great things. You can earn less money. You can worship on the weekends. Like you already do, so we just basically gave a name to that, but it's something you already do, so don't worry, we're taking the credit. You can pay into a system that will definitely collapse by the time you're old. Yeah. No Ponzi schemes here.
On the exploitation of their labor, that they will never reap the benefits of their...
Wealth for poorest half of humanity declined by 11% in 2018. Yeah, I would actually love this, actually. I'll get into that, too, at the end. By golly, I will get into that by the end.
Own hard work. By its very definition, capitalism...
But again, he uses a bunch of idiotic headlines and does nothing to explain them. I doubt he even reads the articles and expects that to make the case for him. It's a very disingenuous way to operate.
Demands a weakening of democratic systems and the suppression of the vast majority of people.
What do you mean? What are you talking about? You can still close the ballot box. What are you talking about? It's anti-democratic.
Capitalism is not freedom. Capitalism is the enemy of freedom, and it needs to go.
Because you have hunger, and you have to work. Oh boy, even though working is a better deal than just going out and killing for your stuff, or working frickin' all day from sunrise to sunset on a farm. Well, you heard it here, ladies and gentlemen. Second thought. An intellectual amongst all intellectuals. Alrighty, bonus round. Why is it BS that the millionaires and billionaires are profiting off of... All the millionaires and billionaires are profiting off the pandemic, okay? The government wants to bully people out of retirement money. What do I mean? There are some ridiculous stipulations to oftentimes retirement funds that you have to, by a certain age, start withdrawing money. The government, in the event of the coronavirus, decided to waive that, and if you want to keep your money in your investment plan, you can do it. People don't. Again, I guess people like this, like, oh, it's going to disproportionately benefit the millionaires and billionaires. Okay, all right. It's not like old people are inherently more wealthy anyways, considering the fact they had a lifetime behind them to work, right? Dude, it's not enough that grandma and gramps are dying of the coronavirus, right? Now you're just trying to bully them out of their money, really? You're doing this, man? Oh, shoot. It's costing the government money. It's costing all of us so severely. It's disproportionately benefiting the wealthiest to give to the poor. Serious. Charities are much better and efficient at distributing money to the people and resources, money and resources, the people who most need it. That's a bad thing. It's costing us $4.83 billion. Really? It's going most directly to people who need the help. Pass-through entities, essentially your LLCs and stuff like that. If you happen to have if you had any sort of big losses, alright, from a few years back up until this point, you can write it off as losses like that, and you're not going to get charged as much by the government. As a matter of fact, for certain things, long story short, you can also get refunded for it too. This is kind of similar with what they're doing with corporations too, which is the last item on the list. But then again, when I show you this, are you beginning to wonder? Are you beginning to wonder why? Are you beginning? It makes you wonder. Makes you wonder why people should get reimbursed for some of their losses. Ultimately, ladies and gentlemen, second thought, for all of his cognitive dissonance, doesn't understand Keynesian economics. He says he's of the belief or the persuasion that we need to put human benefit first, right? Yet, he does not understand that for the government to spend all this money in order to help people, you need to have a taxable base first. And yet, he believes it disproportionately benefits millionaires and billionaires just to stay aloft and not go bankrupt. Where will the money for this socialism come from? Where will it come from, man? Where will it come from? And then if you have debt, which by the way, a lot of companies have to, incur in order to stay afloat and not go bankrupt. Sometimes they have to borrow money. They have to borrow more money. There's no shame in having to do that, and if anything, it's kind of a decent strategy for the government to give them some tax write-offs if they happen to have a lot of debt, and subtract or deduce some of their taxable income, right? Shrink that amount that they can tax because they have debt. Fair enough. A lot of companies are struggling under debt, so they might not be able to pay their taxes. And again, here's just a segment. Basically, the same thing for corporations. Those are things that aren't pass-through entities. So about the poor getting poor, the only thing that our buddy boy could pull up was that the poorest half of the world's wealth fell by about 11%, and that's actually, surprisingly enough, due to a bit of the anti-free market nonsense be going around as far as certain trade embargoes, right? Tariffs, because that, again, there's been this large spike in activity of those, and exchange rates too. Now, the reason for that is because this Oxfam study doesn't rely on purchasing power parity, and to my knowledge, that is why actually it makes it harder for people to go ahead and buy things, right? They didn't actually gauge it by people's purchasing power, actually, which leads us to believe that they talk maybe about assets or the people's ability to maybe accumulate wealth. Anything that wasn't income, some other metrics. So there are some of the things. Oxfam, again, was very vague about this, but hopefully that sheds some light on the situation. No, poor people are not getting poor, okay? the more opportunities people are provided, okay, the more they're going to thrive. And this is exactly what's happening in the third world. Places, again, like, Zimbabwe, Rwanda, they're becoming capitalist now and are seeing some benefit. It's not rocket science, guys. It's not. But what, you see what happened when they tried socialism? Darn pity. Alright, I think that'll be all for today. Peace be upon you all until the next time. And I'll do a separate video, by the way, on is America really the freest nation in the world? That will be for another day. Thank you.